radical left has taken over the Democratic Party.
Hello and welcome to Think Progressively, covering politics and all the other chaos life has to offer. This is episode 145, recorded on Friday, March 28th from Milwaukee. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jason.
And on today's episode, we're going to talk about apparently one of the scariest things known to conservatives. But before that, if you are in Wisconsin, Tuesday, April 1st, we have a gigantic election that you need to vote in. Make sure you vote for all the school choice candidates and Brittany wrong podcast. Make sure you vote for Jill Underly for state superintendent and Susan Crawford for our state Supreme Court, which will literally either turn the balance of our state Supreme Court or keep it the way it is right now.
It's literally the only thing keeping abortion legal in the state of Wisconsin is the fact that we have a liberal majority Supreme Court.
Or how about those maps?
Right. Yeah. If Brad Schimmel wins, the Republican-controlled state legislature will be allowed to redraw the maps again, and we'll go back to being the most gerrymandered state in the country.
How many texts did you get that offered you $100 for this thing?
Oh, the America Pack? I don't know. My phone filters out all those now.
I've gotten they think I'm a Trumper, man. I don't know what the hell's going on. I've gotten so many. I don't know what list I'm on, but I'm on the list, man.
I mean, I'll take the $100, and I already voted, but
you could refer people and then you'll get more hundreds of dollars. You'll be rich, Jason.
Yeah.
That's how it works, right? You're going to clearly get that money because, when billionaires offer people money, there's no way there's a deceptive advertising part of it, right?
Yeah. No loopholes for them to abuse.
No, not one bit. And it's also, this is totally legal, so also great.
Right. Have you been added to any interesting group chats lately?
Well, okay, so here's the deal. I'm not allowed to use Signal for my job, so no, I can't.
I like how all the talk about that is the fact that they accidentally added the journalist instead of just the fact that they were using a group chat to coordinate strikes. Like, that's just illegal in and of itself.
I know.
It doesn't matter that them accidentally adding someone who shouldn't have been in there. It's just why it's illegal. Well,
and my favorite part about the whole thing is that this could have been, it's not a non-story, first off, but it definitely wouldn't have become like the biggest story in the country right now. But these people are so freaking stupid
right.
that they're like on the conspiracy, like bullshit bandwagon now where it's like, well, how did Goldberg infiltrate our group chat?
He hacked us.
Now that's the new conspiracy theory is that he hacked them somehow and made Mike Waltz force him to add him to the group chat.
Right. The 70-year-old journalist hacked the group chat of basically the presidency.
Oh, it's so dumb.
Yeah.
So
and he's such a leftist extremist. Like, the Atlantic is a center-right paper. Like, I hate the Atlantic. Give me a break.
So make sure you vote Tuesday, April 1st. If you're in Wisconsin, we need you to vote. It's going to be a very tight election, and I'm honestly kind of scared about it. So for the love of God, you and everyone you know needs to go out and vote.
For years, banks and mortgage lenders and credit card companies have often used fine print and confusing language and attractive front-end offers to take advantage of American consumers. All this has cost middle-class families tens of billions of dollars.
Now, what is the scariest thing known to conservatives?
Oh, I was going to say,
do you want a better segue?
Women's health care, free and fair elections, an informed public, education, minorities.
You're correct on all that, but I only have time for one episode. We'll get to those another episode.
All right, let's hear the clip.
The CFPB is a left-wing tool created by Elizabeth Warren.
And we had organizations that were looking into us that were not really involved with social media. Like the CFPB, like this financial, I don't even know what it stands for. It's the financial organization that Elizabeth Warren had set up.
Oh, great.
And it's basically, it's like, we're not a bank.
There's no better example of modern socialism than the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB.
If you read the Constitution, there is no such thing as an independent agency, and yet there it is.
What does her agency do?
Whatever she wants. Whatever she wants. Whatever she wants.
Dun, dun, dun.
Did that make you shiver?
Yeah, Elizabeth Warren's coming for your finance. I don't even know what that stands for. He doesn't want to say it because it's got the Protection Bureau. So he doesn't want to say that part of it. And the fact that it's the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. It's like, I don't want to say, I can say finance. That's the only word that's kind of scary.
Liz Warren.
Where Elizabeth Warren finance. Don't listen to the rest of it. I wouldn't know. I'm just the billionaire CEO of Meta, whatever the hell he named it.
It is Meta now.
Yeah, get rid of billionaires.
But that is right. We are talking today about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. For a quick little update, former acting CFPB director and a man behind Project 2025, Russell Vought tweeted out, "The CFPB has been a woke and weaponized agency against disfavored industries and individuals for a long time. This must end." And Elon Musk also tweeted out, "Delete CFPB and CFPB RIP." So we're going to talk about what is the CFPB, why it came to be, and what idiotic things conservatives think about it. Now, I do want to give context for this CFPB episode because this almost became a two-parter, because I think it's very important to talk about exactly why this agency came into being. And the more I looked into it, the more I thought you as a listener should know about it. So we're going to actually spend a decent amount of time for this episode talking about the 2008 financial crisis to get started with this whole thing. So let me take you back to 2007, the year when...
Back before we had a black president.
Yes, exactly.
That's what we mean by Make America Great Again.
The year when the first iPhone was released, when we were all interested in Britney Spears' latest meltdown.
Leave Britney alone.
And The Sopranos infuriated the nation by finishing their series by simply cutting to black.
Don't stop. That pause won't be nearly as long in the actual show because I edit out all the pauses.
But this was also the year that sparked the infamous 2008 financial crisis, which was the largest economic downturn for the United States since the Great Depression in the 1930s.
It happened under the watchful eye of a Republican president, but we somehow still think that Republicans are better for the economy.
Boy, will we get there. So what caused the 2008 financial crisis? Jason, any guesses?
Deregulation.
Yes. Or capitalism.
Right.
But, I mean, we have to talk a little more than that. So anyway, a couple of years before the crisis hit, large investors were looking for low-risk, high-value investments to put their money in. They settled on the U.S. housing market.
Yeah, geez, you have all these other TV shows and stuff. If you remember, every other show on TV was like, house flippers, flip this house.
House hunters, yeah.
Everybody put all your money into...
Real estate.
Buying and flipping.
Every like self-help guru always had a seminar about getting into real estate.
Yes. And I think we're getting back there now, too.
Oh, yeah. Now, these investments were not one-off mortgages. So they were not taking Jason's house mortgage specifically or mine specifically. What they were investing in were known as mortgage-related subsidies. Basically, lenders would bundle thousands of these mortgages together and sell them off in different types of shares and groups and packages and bundles to different investors all around the world. Their thinking was that they could get decently high returns from mortgage rates. And, I mean, housing prices were also increasing everywhere. So these investors thought that if they got stuck with a mortgage that was defaulted, or basically meaning a person cannot pay or refuses to pay back the mortgage loan they have, they would simply sell the houses for more money anyway. Foolproof plan! And on top of that, credit rating agencies were telling investors these were safe investments to make, because usually back before this crisis happened, mortgages were actually a pretty sound investment and usually predictable for the most part. For example, in the final report filed by the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission, or the FCIC, described from 2000 to 2007, Moody's Ratings, one of these agencies that gave these credit reports, gave 45,000 mortgage-related securities a AAA rating, which is the highest grade for a safe investment. Now, usually this grade is only used for top-tier investments. The report also states that during that time, investments into only 6 private sector companies were given that same grade. So you can see how this one company alone was just basically fudging the numbers the entire time. It should also be noted that the FCIC found that 83% of these ratings from Moody's were ultimately downgraded.
Those bastards.
You gave us a false rating, you bastards. However, no one knew nor cared about at the time, so local and global investors all jumped in and raced to buy up as many mortgage-related securities as possible. This caused lenders to, well, meet that demand. Lenders loosened their standards for qualifying for mortgages, pushing mortgages onto lower-income individuals who would ultimately have difficulty paying back those loans. These lenders would also use predatory lending tactics, such as offering extremely low interest rates at point of sale, or signing, and relying that customers would not understand that these rates would actually dramatically increase in just a few years.
Right, the adjustable rate mortgages.
Correct. And I'm going to keep going back to this bipartisan report because, man, it's telling a lot. But a focus group cited by the FCIC report found that mortgage brokers from the country's second largest mortgage company, Washington Mutual, said that the company pushed specific loans onto customers, even though they knew they would just end up hurting the customers and the company. One broker was quoted saying, "A lot of loan consultants don't believe in it, and I don't think it's good for the customers." And, well, the rest is history. The housing bubble popped. Remember how I said housing prices kept rising? Well, they in fact did. So much so that homeowners were approved for these mortgages, many through dubious means, couldn't afford to pay them. From the FCIC report, quote, "Our examination found, according to one measure, that the percentage of borrowers who defaulted on their mortgages within just a matter of months after taking a loan nearly doubled from the summer of 2006 to late 2007. So as you can clearly see, these are completely straight rip-off mortgage rates. That's what these are. Homeowners began defaulting en masse and houses were put back up for sale. However, unlike in these investors' initial plans, demand for housing plummeted nationwide. Now you had more homeowners with houses that were valued far less than what they were originally paying for. And this led even more people to default on their mortgages, and in some instances, intentionally so.
Right, because you now have a bad investment.
Literally.
Yeah, and you can see it.
And not by your fault, too, by
right,
the way.
that you owe twice as much as this house is worth, and you're never going to be able to sell it and make up that difference. So
Why do it?
The best thing for you to do, honestly, in that circumstance is to default.
Which sounds crazy, but I mean, that's what tons of people did because they had no choice.
Right. I remember, man, it was on the news nonstop everywhere around this time. You got to learn what, being underwater meant and, all that stuff. This is at a time where I am trying to buy a house. I'm of that age where I'm
Sure.
like, oh boy, this isn't very good. Interest rates are going up. It's causing this to get worse. Like we said, those adjustable rate mortgages are starting to really kill people, and housing prices are all over the place. There's still, you can still see the same things happening today or starting to happen, where housing prices are just insane to the point where normal people can't afford houses. It's just becoming investments for companies, and that is exactly where we were in 2007.
Yes. Now, all these defaults rapidly tanked the value of all these mortgage securities that these lenders spent billions on. Banks such as Lehman Brothers, Merrill Lynch, Fannie Mae, and many, many more, I've included an entire list in our show notes, declared bankruptcy or had to get bought up by other big banks or had to get literally bailed out. And with that, I mean the federal government started spending billions of dollars to bail out these banks that were, quote, too big to fail. And I think if there was any phrase that came out of the 2008 financial crisis, it was the too big to fail phrase.
Right. And if there's one thing that I would say is the biggest failure of the Obama administration, it's focusing more on giving billions of dollars to these banks and not doing anything for the people that lost their homes.
I agree. How much, you may ask? According to the U.S. Department of Treasury, as of 2023, and yes, we are still paying relief funds from 2008, the federal government has spent $443.5 billion of its allocated $475 billion to bail out banks, automakers, and homeowners. And guess which ones came last?
Right. And got the least amount.
Correct. One of the biggest bailouts was the company AIG. You may have heard about them before. They're still existing today, at least.
I've seen an AIG ad during the Super Bowl.
Well, there you go.
So we know what they're spending their money on.
During the bubble, AIG sold nearly $80 billion of what was called credit default swaps. Basically, these were sold as insurance to lenders against default of all the mortgage-backed securities these lenders were buying. However, with all of that risk, they had no money to back up those policies. So when all the securities started defaulting, AIG also crashed. The federal government had to eventually step in and acquire/bail out AIG for $182.3 billion. It's also worth noting that after the bailout, AIG still paid out over $200 million in bonuses to top executives, literally after receiving the $182 billion.
Hey, they deserve it, Joe.
Of course they do.
They would have lost $185 billion if it weren't for those executives.
AIG said their hands were tied. And shockingly, the outrage about this was bipartisan. Here's an old clip from the AP covering a Senate hearing about the bailout. It features Republican Senator Jim Bunning of Kentucky and Obama's Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner.
Billions of dollars given to AIG prompted anger at a Senate hearing this week.
Last week, AIG's bailout bring a total to about $180 billion. I don't understand how one company is worth propping up $180 billion worth of taxpayers' money, and I don't think the American people understand it either.
I agree it is an outrageous thing for our government to be in the position where a company was allowed to get to the point with no constraints that their future is critical to the future of the financial system.
I can't believe it, Jason, but I agree with both of them.
Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't bail them out because we shouldn't spend $180 billion bailing out any company. And yes, there should be more regulations in the financial industry. Both of those things are true. But we did anyway, so...
Woo! Don't worry, Jason, it gets better. The effects of all these bankruptcies were a massive shock to not only the U.S.'s economy, but the entire world's. U.S. GDP fell by 4.3%, marking the deepest recession since World War II. Rapidly, unemployment doubled to double digits and fluctuated for the next several years. For all of our stock market followers out there, the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped by nearly 800 points in late 2008, losing over 54% of its value from the year prior. And of course, with the US economy tanking, countries all throughout the world were feeling ripple effects resulting in political instability. Take Iceland, for example. After Iceland's banking system collapsed in response to the global recession, massive protests broke out in 2009, several times turning violent. Hooray! The Icelandic government actually had to call elections 2 years early due to massive instability and calls for them to all resign. Other countries such as Brazil, Israel, France, and Greece faced similar circumstances.
Sounds like the people of Iceland actually know how to get shit done.
Well, there's like 10 of them, so it's a lot easier to do that, you know? Sorry for all our Iceland listeners. Now, while this was happening, the Bush administration, like Jason said, faced some pretty harsh criticism for not being proactive enough to prevent the crash. I would say they did fuck all to help prevent the crash.
They kind of made it happen.
And yes, it also led to a very entertaining clip of Jim Cramer, the Mad Money guy. I don't know if you remember it. Where he went on one of those viral rants at the time. Keep in mind, this clip is from August of 2007, before the worst of the financial crisis came to be.
Forget the investors. The investors are going to do, if Bernanke listens, Bernanke needs to open the discount window. That's how bad things are out there. Bernanke needs to focus on this. Alan Greenspan told everyone to take a teaser rate and then raise the rate 17 times. And Bernanke is being an academic. It is no time to be an academic. It is time to get on the Bear Stearns call. Listen, open the darn Fed window. He has no idea how bad it is out there. He has no idea. He has no idea.
Kramer.
I have talked to the heads of almost every single one of these firms in the last 72 hours, and he has no idea what it's like out there. None! And Bill Poole has no idea what it's like out there. My people have been in this game for 25 years, and they are losing their jobs, and these firms are going to go out of business, and he's nuts! They're nuts! They know nothing! I have not seen it like this since I went 5 bid for 500,000 shares of Citigroup when I got hit in 1990. This is a different kind of market, and the Fed is asleep. Look, we'll spend billions in Iraq to build homes. We are going to have thousands of people. Look, we have thousands of people losing their homes right now. 14 million people took a mortgage in the last 3 years. 7 million of them took teaser rates or took piggyback rates. They will lose their homes. This is crazy.
Won't anyone think of the mortgage brokers and investment brokers? I mean, at least at the end, he does talk about people actually losing their homes.
Yeah, it took him a little while to get there.
Right.
But I also, the reason why I put this clip in here is because I want to show listeners that this was predictable. You'll hear from, and I saw some other stuff that I really wanted to include, like clips from interviews from like Warren Buffett and a bunch of our like Wall Street execs saying, we had no idea this was going to happen. This was a complete surprise to all of us. We were not prepared for this. Apparently not. They all knew this was going to happen, and they kept doing it anyway to make a quick buck. So keep that in mind as we go on. This was absolutely predictable, and it could have been stopped.
Yeah, I mean, the reason this happened was because Glass-Steagall was repealed.
Well, yeah.
So the protections were in place. Let's remove those protections. Failure. What's the solution? Put in more regulations. What are we doing right now? The biggest deregulation in American history. I wonder if everything's going to turn out all right for everyone.
I should also just quickly clarify, when he's talking about Bernanke and that's the Federal Reserve Secretary in there. So that's Bush's Federal Reserve Secretary. And then Alan Greenspan, he was basically from like the Reagan era. And it was like in that role. And even Bill Clinton kept him on, like, of course, bipartisanship or something. Well, let's go on. The FCIC agreed with that criticism and laid a decent amount of fault with the lack of government oversight. Quote from their report: "The sentries were not at their posts, in no small part due to the widely accepted faith in the self-correcting nature of the markets and the ability of financial institutions to effectively police themselves. More than 30 years of deregulation and reliance on self-regulation by the financial institutions, championed by former Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan and others, supported by successive administrations and Congresses, and actively pushed by the powerful financial industry at every turn, had stripped away key safeguards which could have helped avoid catastrophe. This approach had opened up gaps in oversight of critical areas with trillions of dollars at risk, such as the shadow banking system and over-the-counter derivative markets." That's the AIG thing we were talking about earlier. In addition, the government permitted financial firms to pick their preferred regulators in what became a race to the weakest supervisor.
And we are doing much worse right now in every area of the federal government.
But at least we have tariffs.
Doge is going to cause another crisis like this.
Oh, 100%. And we're going to talk about the thing that was put in place to stop this crumbling before our eyes.
Right.
So, in 2010, Congress passed the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act, also known as the Dodd-Frank Act. Here's what it did. To prevent such a collapse from happening again, the law established the Financial Stability Oversight Council and the Orderly Liquidation Authority. These authorities are basically tasked with overseeing companies that are, quote, too big to fail, and provides mechanisms to allow them to fail in a controlled manner. It also established the Federal Insurance Office to help identify and monitor these large companies. It also established the Volcker Rule, which limited speculative trading to ensure that large lenders wouldn't simply rely on the same bullshit strategies that caused the crash to happen in the first place. It should also be noted that Trump and Republicans rolled back these limits in 2016. So, great! The law also created the Office of Credit Ratings within the Securities and Exchange Commission, which is tasked with stopping the spread of bogus credit ratings, which we talked about earlier. Moody's. It expanded the nation's whistleblower program as well, which gave more incentive and protections to employees for speaking out. And finally, it established the whole point of this episode, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The whole purpose of this agency was to monitor and take action against predatory lending practices that negatively impacted the public. It also gave the public bigger voices when it disputed claims from large companies, and provided financial guidance and education to the public.
Wait a minute. I thought it was just attacking institutions and people that we don't like.
I mean, you can do multiple things at once. I don't know what we're all upset about. What is it like? You can rub your stomach and pat your head at the same time. We can do all these things. We're good. We're the evil Democrat cabal. Come on. But to give a more succinct description of what the CFPB is, here's Elizabeth Warren explaining her priorities for the agency on CNN.
Evil Elizabeth Warren.
Well, get ready for this interview from the evil CNN.
Fake news. Communist news network.
Oh yeah, it's going to sound very communist.
What is your agenda? Give us issues 1, 2, and 3, because you're about to get to work. What are we going to see that the middle class will say, aha, this will change my life?
What I really want to see are credit products, right? Which is what they really are. In many ways they are, like toasters or refrigerators. These things that people buy, like credit cards and mortgages, I want to see them short and readable so that a consumer can say, I can see how much that costs, and I can see what kind of risk comes with it, and here's the key part. I can compare this one to that one to that one to that one and tell that's the one that's cheaper or the one that has lower risk. I want a market that actually works for consumers.
That's the critical point. Competition works. Mm-hmm. We all believe in that. I mean, we are capitalists. We believe in competition. When there is no transparency in the market, consumers can't do what they're supposed to do.
Well, let me say this, though. I mean, just to play devil's advocate here. I'm all for simplifying the credit card forms, and that would be nice. But isn't it really, aren't we falling into the trap of taking care of people who refuse to take care of themselves? I mean, if I run up credit card debt, that's my fault. It's not the fault of anyone else.
There's plenty of room for personal responsibility here. When these agreements are clear and people can see exactly what the credit costs, it's up to them whether or not they spend it, whether or not they don't. But here's the part that I care about, and I think the regulation should be about. Nobody should have to worry that hidden back there somewhere in the pages and pages of fine print are tricks and traps. There is nothing in the fine print that's ever good news for the consumer. It's always something that bites. It's always something that drives up the cost. It's always something that makes someone far more vulnerable.
I couldn't agree
than
more.
they thought
When I
they were.
see a food package and it's got all these ingredients that I don't understand, I don't eat it, right? So when there's all this fine print, I don't subscribe to it either.
The problem right now is you can't deal with credit products if you are unwilling to do fine print. You're a cash on the barrelhead girl and nothing more.
Robert Kennedy's voice really sounded a lot different. A couple years back. You couldn't see it obviously because this is an audio medium, but when he was like, "We're all capitalists here, right?" he was winking really hard. And I like how, where's the personal responsibility? Where's the responsibility for all of these companies that got hundreds of billions of dollars getting bailed out by the government? Where's the personal responsibility there? No one ever gives a shit about that.
Well, because once they become publicly traded, it actually becomes more of a collectivist responsibility. We don't deal with that here. So that's why we don't worry about it.
Corporations it's the only way that you're allowed to basically have zero risk in anything. You always pass everything off to the public anytime you take a loss, and then you take all of the profit for yourself. It is absolutely disgusting, and we can never do anything to help the individual people. That's socialism. We can't have that. But you want to bail out the corporation that's making billions of dollars and paying their executives hundreds of millions of dollars. That's fine. That's just good capitalism. That's the market deciding.
And apparently don't eat foods with things you don't understand.
Yeah.
So
I would have slapped her right across the face. That's what Elizabeth Warren should have done. Just shut up. How did you get this job?
Now, if Elizabeth Warren slapped her across the face, I would have immediately wanted her for president right then and there. Like, absolutely.
Just shut the fuck up. God damn.
So let's talk about the agency that you were just talking about would do the things that you wanted to be done. First off, I want to start with Elizabeth Warren's role in the CFPB. As you heard in all the scary, spooky clips in the teaser trailer, it's her thing and she can do whatever she wants with it. And
Independent agency ruled by Elizabeth Warren.
Correct.
The Wicked Witch of the Warren.
I didn't even include the Trump one where he started saying, yeah, this is so bad. We shouldn't even have the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. It's just awful for all the people. I mean, Liz Warren just runs wild with it. And you know how she is. Like, she just lies like with her Indian heritage. She just lies. She's Pocahontas out here. And so if you can't trust her with that, how could you trust her with the CFPB? I'm like, what?
Trump saying that anyone lies a lot is
the craziest thing of all time. However, with all that said, this was Elizabeth Warren's idea, and she doesn't shy away from that. She also wrote extensively about it, and I'll include a link to her blog post suggesting the idea, what she called at the time the Financial Safety Product Commission. And like she said in the clip, the whole point was, if we have safety regulations on things like toasters and refrigerators and stoves from not exploding in our house, why can't we do that with financial products as well, when we know that people are getting scammed left and right? That's the whole basis of this entire agency.
Right, and it's no coincidence. Elizabeth Warren's entire career has been based on consumer protection.
Yes.
So yeah, it's not like a surprise that she would spearhead a consumer protection agency.
Correct. She also served as a special advisor until President Obama appointed the first director of the CFPB, Richard Cordoy. But since then, she became a senator. And she's been a senator. So now, what has the CFPB done? And Jason, I want you just to let me know if you think any of these are good.
Terrible. Weaponized by the government. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Joke is over. We are moving on.
I'm going to cut that out anyway, so don't worry about it. That ain't making it in.
Since its formal inception in 2012, the CFPB has returned over $21 billion to over 205 million American taxpayers.
And where did that money come from?
Satan.
No, the $21 billion came from...
the taxpayers.
Well, it came from banks.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were going even further than that, which but
I mean, originally, yes, it did come from the people, but the taking that $21 million back, they're talking about taking that $21 million, $21 billion,
so much bigger,
back from these banks. And that's the problem.
Yes.
That's why we have to shut this whole thing down, because they're getting in the way of these banks profiting.
Correct.
These banks could be making $21 billion more if the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau was gone. And that's why it's going to be gone.
Correct. Well, let's talk about some specific examples of that. In 2014, the CFPB ordered Bank of America to pay back $772 million to over 1 million customers for deceptive marketing, like telling customers their initial 30 days are free and then immediately charging them anyway without their knowledge, or by having customers agree to receive more information about add-on packages for marketing purposes and then illegally enrolling them again without their knowledge.
Hey, look, you got to take personal responsibility sometimes.
Oh yeah, of course.
And you know,
you just have to assume they're going to rip you off and steal from you, and you should be better for not.
Right, you have to keep an eye on your own finances. It's not the government. The government's not your nanny. It's not there to hold your hand and check your balance every month and make sure that you're not getting scammed by Bank of America. All right, grow up.
Well, I think it's also worth noting too, with all these examples, these are not small, random, sketchy banks, right? These are some of these largest institutions in the world. And it really goes to show that some of these institutions are the ones who are doing this, because they are the ones that people will think, oh, because they're so big, they must have a good reputation. So keep that in mind this entire time. Have you not heard of that, bias?
Well, I guess. I mean, just for me, it's the exact opposite. I figure the more money any institution has,
you're woke as hell, Jason.
The more people they've ripped off to get it.
Well, sure, okay. But you get my point.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I understand people believe that, this bank has been around forever. They can't be ripping people off because the market would have decided.
Or something
it's
stupid
just
like that,
that
yes.
Same nonsense.
Correct. So let's keep going for all these supposedly innocent, gigantic banks. In 2015, the CFPB ordered Citibank to pay back approximately $700 million back to customers for, guess what? The same thing Bank of America did.
Now maybe we can get them to pay back all that gold they stole from Haiti.
No. Because we can't even get them to do this. So no. Some of the biggest victories for the CFPB was its action against Wells Fargo. For those who don't remember or don't know, scandal broke for Wells Fargo in 2016 when it was found out that they opened around 3.5 million accounts without customers' consent.
Yep, that's what happens when you make people open accounts to keep their jobs. They will open accounts.
Yep.
Regardless.
3.5 million.
Yep, I do remember that one.
The CFPB fined them for $185 million and helped get back hundreds of millions of dollars back to those customers.
You know, Wells Fargo is just a mom and pop organization. They're just a little stagecoach company, Joe. I don't see why the government's got to get involved and get in between their relationship with their customers.
You know what? You're right. They won't do this ever again.
Yeah, Elizabeth Warren is the devil.
Except they immediately did it again. Because in 2022, the CFPB fined Wells Fargo again, this time for $1.7 billion, and forced them to pay back over $2 billion back to customers. And this was over nothing really that bad, just a slew of illegal activity, including repeatedly misapplying loan payments, wrongfully foreclosing on homes, illegally repossessing vehicles, incorrectly assessing fees, and interest in charging surprise overdraft fees.
Let's be honest, right? This is all just a hoax. This is all Elizabeth Warren made all of this up. She wasn't in that group chat. They weren't even talking about...
Where's Jeffrey Goldberg when I need him?
They weren't even talking about militarized attacks. This is all... Elizabeth Warren has a long history of creating these hoaxes. She's biased. She's always hated Donald Trump. Where's your proof?
I mean, maybe the millions of people that got money back from the CFPB could help.
Fake news.
And have them vote for Trump anyway.
Yeah, probably.
The CFPB also developed rules to minimize discrimination in consumer finance.
DEI.
Okay, sure. They took action against auto lenders who targeted and illegally pushed and sometimes just, straight up forced active military personnel to waive certain rights given to them under the Military Lending Act.
I gotta support the troops. That's what they're trying to do. You're just mischaracterizing what happened.
The banks that were scamming them were
the banks were just trying to support the troops.
Got it. Okay.
Elizabeth Warren hates the troops.
Got it. Okay. In 2024, they announced a new rule capping overdraft fees at $5 for banks and $8 for credit card companies, which would have resulted in billions of dollars in savings for customers. They also brought action against Navy Federal Credit Union, Regions Bank, Atlantic Union, and, you guessed it, Wells Fargo. For illegal surprise late fees on customers to the tune of over $400 million.
Look at all of this government overreach, taking money out of the hands of starving CEOs.
Why can't the free market just let it be?
Look at that Navy Federal Credit Union, again, attacking our veterans. Disgraceful.
And finally, you may remember this. Back in January of this year, as one of the last actions of the outgoing administration, the CFPB finalized a rule that would remove medical debt from credit reports. Their research report estimated that Americans with medical debt would see an approximate 20-point increase in their credit scores by simply removing this debt.
Again, this is just pure government overreach. These people got this debt. They didn't need those surgeries. They didn't need that medical care. I mean, this is completely their own fault. They need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, pay their debts. I'm sick of everybody wanting handouts for everything. Oh, I can't pay for my college. Oh, I can't pay for my medical debts. I'm sorry, the handouts are closed. This is Trump's America.
I don't care if you had cancer.
We only give out billions of dollars
to the important people,
to billionaires, all right? Because they've proven that they can handle that kind of money. So we're only going to be giving the government handouts to Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, and we're not helping somebody who, had to have cancer. They had to have it.
Yeah,
so,
Sheila.
Yeah, and now they want the government to come and bail them out. Not going to happen, sorry. It's probably all illegal immigrants anyway.
My favorite part about that is that I'm sure you're not far off from the actual criticism of that, which is my first thought went to, and it's not even bailing them out. It's just taking it off the credit report.
Right.
And they're like, no, get out of here.
It's all illegal immigrants coming up from Mexico and Canada to use all our health care because their systems are terrible, not like the United States freedom care that we have. It's so great.
Well, my next point was, so why is it hated? But you put such a succinct argument debunking everything I've said.
Right. It's such a well thought out, reasoned response. I think I'm a Republican now, Joe. I don't know.
And we hate Elizabeth Warren now.
The devil.
So usually, unsurprisingly, criticisms of the CFPB came from billionaires and banking/Wall Street executives who typically, were scamming the American public. Take the clip we talked about earlier from Mark Zuckerberg, who had the audacity to play victim of the evil CFPB.
I'm just a poor little billionaire CEO.
Even though the agency was currently looking into whether or not Meta was profiting from hosting deceptive financial ads on their platforms and, scamming more people. But one piece of bullshit that I want to cover is this idea that the CFPB, and for some reason, Elizabeth Warren herself, I guess, is responsible for, quote, debaking conservatives. And to help me explain the argument, let's go back to the one of the clips at the beginning of this episode and listen to poor little crypto billionaire Mark Andreessen talking to Joe Rogan.
So, for example, we have this thing called the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, CFPB, which was it's sort of Elizabeth Warren's personal agency that she gets to control. And it's an independent agency that just gets to run and do whatever it wants, right? And if you read the Constitution, there is no such thing as an independent agency, and yet there it is.
What does her agency do?
Whatever she wants.
What does it do, though?
Basically, terrorize financial institutions, prevent fintech, prevent new competition, new startups that want to compete with the big banks.
Really?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
How so?
just like terrorizing anybody who tries to do anything new in financial services. And
Can you give me an example?
Well, like I said, debanking. This is where a lot of the debanking comes from. Is these agencies? So debanking is when you as either a person or your company are literally kicked out of the banking system,
like they did to Kanye.
Exactly, like they did to Kanye. My partner Ben's father has been debanked.
Really?
We had an employee who
for what?
For having the wrong politics, for saying unacceptable things. Under current banking regulations, here's a great thing. Under current banking regulations, after all the reforms of the last 20 years, there's now a category called a politically exposed person, PEP. And if you are a PEP, you are required by financial regulators to kick them off of to kick them out of your bank.
What?
You're not allowed
but
to
what
have
if you're politically on the left?
Well, that's fine.
No,
because they're not politically exposed.
So no one on the left gets debanked?
I have not heard of a single instance of anybody on the left getting debanked.
Can you tell me what the person that you know did, what they said that got them debanked?
Oh, well, I mean, David Horowitz is a right-wing, he's pro-Trump. I mean, he's said all kinds of things. He's been very anti-Islamic terrorism. He's been very worried about migration, all these things.
And they debanked him for that?
Yeah, they debanked it. So you get kicked out of your bank account. You get kicked out of you can't do credit card transactions. But, by the way, you can't
How is that legal?
Well, exactly.
We just smell this microphone here.
Oh, wow. What? Everything you're telling me is definitely 100% correct.
Well, and my
mind is blown.
My favorite part about this clip, and I'm going a little bit out of order, is you don't have to know a single thing about anything he said to just know that Mark Andreessen is just puking out bullshit.
Well, he's on the Joe Rogan show.
Yeah, but even then, he's like terrified. He's like stammering over himself, like, well, I mean, they're terrorizing people. Well, like what? Well, I mean, because like they're just terrorizing them. Well, what do you mean? Well, like Kanye.
Debanking. That dude was on so many drugs during that interview.
Oh my God.
He was fucking smelling colors. That's why he was smelling
and
so
Joe
hard.
is just eating it up, man. Like,
what? Oh my God.
No way. So first off, no.
The aliens are controlling the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau?
Well, now that's true.
Whoa.
Hang on.
They built the pyramids? Oh my God.
Does he still talk about DMT?
Has anyone listened to that guy?
I don't know, man. It's insane. So first off, no, Elizabeth Warren is not running the damn CFPB. Jesus, she's a senator. Second, no, it's not just some independent agency that can do whatever it wants no matter what people say.
Unlike Doggy, which is an independent agency.
Oh, we'll get to that, Jason. Don't you worry. So we'll get to that in a bit.
But I heard my cousin's brother's sister completely got kicked out of her bank. And you know what she did? Didn't vote for Donald Trump.
Oh, snap.
So, that's all that you have to do. Elizabeth Warren just comes for you in the night.
Right. Third.
She hides under your bed.
And finally.
She puts crumbs on it. You didn't eat in the bed. Where did those crumbs come from? Elizabeth Warren. That's where they came from.
Before we talk about the debanking thing, I'm sorry, where the hell did I miss that this super radical left-wing Marxist agency known as the CFPB also somehow wants to protect the largest banks from competition from startups?
Right.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm just trying to disrupt the financial industry right now. Thinking out of the box here. That Elizabeth Warren is ruining it.
Now let's talk about the debanking conservatives thing. Would you believe, Jason, that he was wrong? Regarding Kanye, this was just misinformation spread on Twitter by Candace Owens. And best of all, I'll include the link in the show notes. I have a lot of links. I hope I can fit these all in the show notes. Kanye, by his own letter, is the one who left his own bank. They did not kick him out of anything.
Yeah, and I can imagine why, too. A lot of their names probably ended in Stein, and he wasn't real comfortable with that, if you know what I mean.
They sound like an Atlantic reporter, if you know what I'm saying. Watch out for the group chats, everybody. Whoa. Okay, yeah. The other thing he goes into is this classification of politically exposed persons, or PEPs. First off, of course, he's just completely misrepresenting what it is. All a PEP...
It just means that you support Donald Trump.
All a PEP is someone who is notably seen as being a higher risk to bank with because they are vulnerable to bribery and other corruption because of their position or title. This would work for Republicans and Democrats like Elizabeth Warren, who is a senator and is considered a politically exposed person.
But it's fine. He's never heard of anything negative happening to a Democrat.
Of course. And as you can guess, no, the CFPB was not forcing financial institutions to remove PEPs from banking. So I literally have no idea where he got this from because
I know it's directly out of his ass.
Well, okay, good point. Because the CFPB is one of the biggest government fires against debanking from private company. And one of my favorite pieces of irony of this entire thing is even Mark himself admitted that he had no idea what the CFPB was actually doing this entire time. And when he found out about the CFPB actually fighting in favor of people who were potentially being debanked, he was happy about it. So the whole thing that Mark is pushing here is a flat out lie. And finally, you would think, we would hear about the half of Congress who would be debanked if this is true, because I don't know about you, Jason, but I think we have a very public way of knowing about whether or not people support Donald Trump or not.
Right. Well, not to mention like half the country.
Correct. So he's an idiot.
Well, yeah.
And never listen to him ever about anything. So for a more astute criticism from the right, we're going to look at Reason.com. And their article, quote, the 5 worst things about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Don't worry, Jason, we're not going through the entire thing. I just want to tackle the criticism regarding the CFPB's structure. And this is kind of a thing that Mark was alluding to. From the article, quote, the Democrats who wanted this agency thought it would be a great idea for the CFPB to get its funding from the Federal Reserve's earnings up to a cap, instead of annual appropriations from Congress, all while its director couldn't be fired by the president. The irony is rich. Many of the same legislators who are complaining loudly now that the lack of congressional oversight over the Department of Government Efficiency designed the CFPB to be insulated from congressional oversight and democratic accountability. So, Jason, why are we upset about Doge when CFPB is the same thing, man?
Right. Well, and if any of this was true, then they wouldn't be able to dismantle the CFPB like they are.
I'm not listening to you.
La, 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 la.
I'm going to use the
no
argument.
Accountability. La, 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 la.
I'm going to use the argument of jingly keys. See how these keys jingle. So let's talk a little bit about this, because this is actually one of the biggest long-standing criticisms of the CFPB from Republicans and conservatives. The argument can get boiled down to basically saying that the CFPB is unconstitutional because of its structure. Yes, the CFPB is an independent government agency that does not get its funds from congressional appropriations. Also, unlike other agencies that usually have some kind of bipartisan or it's not nonpartisan, it's a bipartisan board that gets switched out all the time. The CFPB has a single director. And the point of that was our government moves extremely slowly, and that sucks sometimes. So we want something to move a little bit faster when we're dealing with the money of the people. And on top of that, did you notice how the article just kind of neatly slided over the funding cap, which, isn't anything big, but it's controlled by Congress. So don't tell me, Reason.com and all the freaking Republicans and conservatives who are bullshitting everyone right now, that Congress has nothing to do and there are no checks and balances on the CFPB, when at any time Congress can lower the cap that the CFPB gets. And if you think I'm lying and bullshitting you, Jason, don't worry, I have someone on my side. The Supreme Court, and not that woke bullshit from back in the 1960s or whatever it was. 2024 Supreme Court. That's right. In a 7-2 decision written by Clarence Thomas.
Ugh, you're hurting your case now. You went full circle.
Ruled that there was nothing wrong with how the CFPB was set up and was perfectly constitutional. So what is happening with the CFPB right now? Well, in February, the CFPB was effectively shut down. Buildings were vacant and just lights were off, like in many other agencies. The Trump administration officially requested $0 for the CFPB in their budget to the Federal Reserve, giving it basically no money to continue their work. Elon Musk and other conservatives also have been tweeting out constantly that they want the $711 million budget for the CFPB to return back to the taxpayers, which would mean we basically would all get, if I did my calculations correctly, $4.62 each.
And instead, your bank will rip you off every year because we don't have a regulating body.
However, in a weird twist, not really, the Trump administration and Russell Vought were so stupid that during their entire firing spree, they neglected the fact that a lot of the work done by the CFPB is mandated by federal statute, aka the Dodd-Frank Act. So they sent out another memo a little bit later after they fired everyone, telling them, quote, "It has come to my attention, however, that some employees have not been performing statutorily required work. Let me be clear. Employees should be performing all work that is required by law." After they were fired and be told to go home. And as of an hour ago, this is the closest, Jason, we're ever going to get now to current events. A federal judge recently ordered that all CFPB employees go back to work. In the ruling, Judge Amy Berman Jackson said, quote,
DEI.
quote, "Defendants shall not terminate any CFPB employee except for cause related to the individual employee's performance or conduct, and defendants shall not issue any notice of reduction in force to any CFPB employee." She went on to say, "To ensure that employees can perform their statutorily mandated functions, the defendants must provide them with their fully equipped office space or permission to work remotely."
Ooh, they're going to hate that.
They will. Now, I can assume that obviously this is probably just going to go up to the Supreme Court. Even in Judge Jackson's ruling, they basically intentionally left a lot of room for an appeal to happen, so it's almost guaranteed. So we'll see what happens from there. But that kind of ends our story and our marathon of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and how large companies and corporations screwed over the American public so bad that it caused a global crisis to the point where we actually had to do something about it. Started one of the best agencies probably we have in the entire federal government that helped retrieve billions of dollars back to taxpayers. We want to talk about helping American taxpayers and all that ballooning debt we have. This is one of the most effective agencies we have.
Claws money back from billion-dollar corporations to give to the consumers, who are illegally taking their money. But of course, who are the people in the Trump administration? Those executives of the banks.
Yep.
So that's why we have to get rid of it.
I also saw, I didn't include any of this in here, but I think as of yesterday, the Senate recently just overruled their $5 overdraft ruling as well. So now that's gone too. So less protections for everybody. And now the House Finance Oversight Committee just held a hearing about the new era of the CFPB, and it was just a slobbering mess of large corporate banks.
Well, and it's no surprise either that Elon Musk has talked about having Twitter be a financial institution.
Correct.
That you can bank with. So yeah, what's the one thing that he's going to need to do? What's the regulation for financial institutions? Let's get rid of that.
Yep.
In my new unelected position of doing whatever I want within the federal government. I struggle every day to find anything that I still have any hope for in the future of our country, anything that I can cling to. And right now, I just can't see it.
Right. And doing this episode, going back to what you were talking about before, really kind of made me see how bad the 2008 financial crisis actually was. I was a little bit too young to fully understand it. I remember my mom showed me her 401k and how that plummeted.
Yeah. And my dad was, I think, just retiring, or either he had just retired or he was going to retire right around that same time as well. I think he had just retired. So maybe he got out in the nick of time, but you don't always completely cash out, your 401k. You usually roll it over into an IRA and all that kind of stuff. And he probably did. So I don't know what that did, with my parents' finances, but it was terrible for everyone. I mean, it still reverberates to this day. Your generation, you're a bit younger than me. All those people coming out of college, there were no jobs at that time.
Oh my God, tell me about it.
So it stunted that. That's where the whole, living with your parents until you're 30 thing came from. And it's something that still continues to this day. The housing, certainly not fixed at all. The housing market is just as bad now as it was then.
Well, and again, it just makes me so angry that I think those older generations who are the ones who were aware enough. I mean, I know that you were talking about, you were right at that time about to buy a house. So I think that made you a perfect person to experience it in that type of way. But do you have even older generations really be aware of what's going on and experience that situation happening right before their eyes, and then still try to tell millennials that they're just being lazy and entitled when they literally destroyed our economy? We always talk about how millennials and younger generations are just soft, emotional little wrecks that can't handle living on their own and being independent. And then usually the response back to to that is, well, you paid for your house back in the 1970s for like $300, and now look at it as today. We don't even have to look that far back. Look back to 2008. Don't look back to prior than 2000. Just go back to 2008 and see how the world economy was destroyed in such a predictable way by these large corporate banks who intentionally were scamming people to make another quick buck. And I wish more people, this is why I was doing this. I know I'm late to the ball game, but luckily there happened to be a recent development anyway. I wish more people were upset about this. This should be a thing that should enrage so many freaking people. I can't even imagine a more directly useful government agency.
Well, and it's so blindly in favor of the ultra rich, the elites, the people that already have everything. It so openly favors Elon Musk in particular.
Correct.
And we just, what are we supposed to do? I mean, I have some suggestions that might be illegal for me to say in public, but I don't know what else we have the power to do except take a hint from Iceland and let's violently overthrow this shitty ass government that no one wanted. Come on, January 6th, we'll all march to the Capitol.
I don't know. I just maybe share this with people that you know and try to tell them to be just as angry with this as you are probably.
I mean, I know my solution is probably just going to move somewhere else and forget I give a shit about any of this. But
I get that too. No, I don't know how to end it again. Damn it. Cut it. We're
Step
done.
one, at least go vote April 1st. If you're in Wisconsin or if you're in a state that has spring elections, show how angry you are with the state of the government and vote against every Republican.
Yep. Never vote for Republican again or conservative ever, because this is what they give us. And we are about to hit, like Jason said, Great Recession 2.0. So get ready for that too.
Yay. See you in 2 weeks, everybody.
Woo! Thank you so much for listening. If you want to get in contact with us, you can find us on Blue Sky at ThinkProPod, or you can reach out to us via email at thinkpropod@gmail.com. And remember, when in doubt, think progressively. Yeah, you got a short haircut.
Literally, my hair always being in my eyes was irritating the shit out of my eyes. They were always itchy and watery and stuff. My eyebrows started to fall out.
Oh, shit.
So I was like, yeah, I gotta get this cut.
Damn.
It felt like I burned my eyebrows. That's what it felt like. They were really brittle and crunchy. And I looked in the mirror and I'm like, my eyebrows used to go all the way over. And now they're there was just this much. And then there was nothing. They started growing back now, but you can still see on the edges, there's nothing there.
I wouldn't even notice until you told me, but yeah.
Yeah.
Shit, man.